Brown, looking forward to you. Which QB would you rather have in the big game?
All right, Tony, 2 weeks ago you did this with us for the NFC Championship. Yep. All four of us took Aaron Rodgers. We're going to see who's learned from that mistake. I, for one, have not. I, for one, am taking Patrick Mahomes probably in a landslide. Because we are still talking about Tom Brady today and not Tom Brady's legacy, which is the greatest ever, really, no matter what Mahomes does. But one guy's 25, one guy's 43. One guy's throwing 3 interceptions a couple weeks ago, and the other guy's Patrick Mahomes. It's really not a close call.
Sarah Spain, who'd you rather have at the big game?
Yeah, if I recall, Tim, we were choosing which quarterback independent of their team, and we successfully chose the one that did not throw 3 interceptions in the game. This big game is fascinating in the way we're discussing it because we're mostly talking about how these quarterbacks are going to go up against 2 incredible defensive coordinators. And it's mostly going to be about pressure, interior pressure on a 43-year-old with not much mobility who's 27th in the league in QBR when he gets under pressure versus a quarterback who you have to prevent from leaking to the outsides who happens to be first in QBR under pressure and first in touchdown interception and first in yards per pass attempt under pressure and first in QBR. So all of those statistics tell me that if I'm taking the guy who's best under pressure in a game that's going to be about that defensive pressure, whether that's the blitz or rushing 4, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes.
Israel Gutierrez, who are you taking quarterback in the big game?
It feels a bit like a trick question, like if somebody were to ask me, hey, what color do you think Tony Reali's going to wear on the show today? It feels like, oh, hello. So I do believe that it is Patrick Mahomes. I would say the best argument Tom Brady has is that Tom Brady has played in 9 big games and Patrick Mahomes has only played in 1 big game. But in this particular big game, the biggest of all the big games, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. He's got more ways to beat you. Tom Brady requires a clean pocket in order to be the quarterback that he is. And, you just can't predict that that's going to happen. So obviously, I think the answer is Patrick Mahomes.
Clinton Yates, it's a big game. Who would you rather have as a quarterback for this big game?
Large matchup, I hear. Well, here's the way it breaks down to me. There's the greatest winner of all time in the NFL, and there's the guy who does not lose right now. Ever since the Chiefs started 6-4 in 2019, Mahomes has gone 25-1, y'all. I mean, that to me on its own is just a number that you cannot ignore in terms of who he is, never mind the MVP trophy thrown in there. So, yes, Sunday, taking Mahomes because he's simply too good to not take. It's just simple as that.
Here's a question that maybe at first seems obvious, but maybe it isn't. Clinton, which quarterback has better weapons?
I think the team with better weapons is the Chiefs. Between Kelsey, between Watkins, and between Tyreek, I just don't think that you can honorably say, yeah, the Bucs have a better weaponry element to them. But what that means down the line, we'll see. But I'll take the Chiefs in that.
Kalishaw, better weapons?
I'm tempted to pick a tie, but I know what that would do as I sit here and laugh.
Hold on. Rewind. Did you hear the exhale from Kalishaw? It's like his soul was snuffed out by the idea of this question he couldn't possibly have comprehended. Go ahead.
Is he going to stop talking? Kansas City looks like they got better weapons because they got the better quarterback throwing to them, okay? Of course they look like they're better. But all I had to see on ESPN was Cameron Brate, limited workout. And I thought, okay, the tight end matchup is so astronomically in the Chiefs' favor, it has to be Kansas.
The tight end matchup is, even though, I mean, how many Hall of Famers are among the weapons for Tampa? Sarah Spain, which team has the better weapons for their quarterback?
It's the Chiefs. We see Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, the only pair of teammates with 100 receiving yards in the same game and multiple times in the same postseason. It is who's throwing to them. It is the game plan. But the number of guys that they can go to and how they use them is scarier to me than those guys who are individually great on Tampa Bay but don't work as well as a unit as the
and Israel
for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's the Chiefs. They're more explosive. Tyreek Hill's probably the biggest game breaker of the group. But more so than anything, Tom Brady doesn't really have a great chemistry with Antonio Brown, who's missed a week. And, they had the bye week with Mike Evans, who's been working all season long trying to get that really great chemistry. We obviously see it on the Chiefs side, never mind their individual talents.
Listen to this panel. I can't even get you guys to be tempted to take Tampa in any of these questions. Well, let me ask you this. Which defense do you trust more in this game, Israel? Bucs getting all the talk going in, but we just saw Kansas City turn off the Buffalo Bills offense, which is very, very strong. Israel? Sarah Spain, which defense do you want more?
I'll take over, Izzy. I know it's scary to do, but I am going to take the Bucs in one of the categories. And it's the defense. Their 41 points off turnovers is the third most of any team en route to a Super Bowl. And we know that JPP and Shaq Barrett are both top 5 in pass rush win rate. These guys are able to create chaos. They're able to create pressure. And what we've seen from them, including that game last week, 2 weeks ago, where they were able to win a game despite those 3 turnovers from Brady, tells you that this defense comes in super strong. It's part of the reason I think Tom Brady decided to go to Tampa Bay, because they had a top 5 D last year as well.
You said super strong. Watch out. You're not allowed to say that word that starts with, or the phrase that starts with super.
Strong?
Big strong, yes.
Big strong.
Israel Gutierrez, defense, you trust more?
I'm going to surprise and say the Chiefs are going to have the more impact on the defensive side as well. And here's why. Yes, I understand that front 7 of Tampa is going to be able to get pressure. But with Patrick Mahomes able to escape that pressure, I do believe it's not going to have as much of an impact. Unless they force a turnover here or there, I think that, Patrick Mahomes will find a way around that. That Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs, that defensive backfield unit, they're on a roll right now. They're playing really well. They're really deep. And I think if they can get a little bit of pressure on Tom Brady, and if Tom looks around and says, man, these guys are covered for most of the game, I don't think he can get more than 21, 24 points on the board.
Clinton Yates, defensively, who's got the advantage?
I think this is Tampa Bay here. As much as I love JPP and Sue, I think that Carlton Davis and Murphy Bunting, speaking of defensive backfields, are actually what are going to be the difference. Murphy Bunting's had a great playoffs. Davis is motivated. He's had a great season overall. I give this advantage to the Bucs for sure.
Tim Kalishaw.
The Bucs get the edge if you're just grading defenses. Unfortunately, one of the things they do best, in fact, is stop the run. The Chiefs don't really care if you stop their run. They run occasionally just to give the receivers a break, and then they go back to throwing it to Kelsey and Hill. So that's not as great a weapon against Kansas City as it would be against other teams. But with that front 7, with those guys, Pierre-Paul, Sue, they seem really committed to trying to get this thing done. I think you got to go with Tampa Bay.
Looking for an X factor. All right? And we started to have this discussion before we went on air, and we found out a panelist doesn't even know what an X factor is, or doesn't subscribe to the idea of X factors. Anybody want to guess which panelist is a stickler for the term X factor? Sarah Spain, you seem to be with us today. Go ahead.
Could that be over here?
Okay. Listen, semantics are important, and being clear in our communication is exceedingly important. So when I hear X factor, that could mean an undiscovered or less pivotal player who somehow emerges and is more important than we imagined. Or in my opinion, it could just mean a game breaker. And in the case of the Chiefs, there are so many players that could have a big game in the big game that I think any one of them could be considered an X factor, because you could pick someone else on that roster. So I'm going with Travis Kelce. The way that Tyreek Hill blew that game open in the first quarter, the last time these two teams met, because they wanted to run press man and they thought they could handle him vertically without extra safety help. Blew up in their face. Second half, they figured out how to cover him. They're going to not want to get beat by that guy, and that's going to open up all those RPO spaces for Travis Kelce to go down the field like this. It's going to be Travis Kelce, who's a game breaker, an X factor, a big guy, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. After she had that preamble where she told us anyone could be the X factor, thank you for breaking the news there, Sarah, she goes with Kelce. Israel, X factor, Sunday.
I'm going to say it's the Kansas City offensive line. Only their center is the guy in the right position who started amongst their regulars. Everything else is shuffled. The tackles are they might be in trouble if there's a ton of pressure from Tampa Bay. So if they have even a decent game, that's got to be.
All right, so your X factor is 5 human beings then who play the offensive line. Remember, X is just one letter. That's all it is. Clinton Yates, your X factor.
In Raymond James Stadium, I will take Robert James Gronkowski as my X factor. As much as the tight end matchup is a big one between two guys that are definitely going to the Hall of Fame, I think Gronkowski has to be a player in order for the Bucs to win this football game. That one play nonsense that they got by with on 2 weeks ago is not going to work. This dude has to be the Gronk of old. Reminder, him and Kelsey are the exact same age. I'll take the guy with 3 times as much silverware.
Wow. Is that true? Gronkowski and Kelce are the same age? That snuck up on me. And Tim Kalishaw, X Factor.
The correct answer to this question, Tony, is Leonard Fournette. You all know his background in Louisiana and what he did at LSU, how things fell apart in Jacksonville. Didn't think he was going to have a career about 3 months ago. And now he's in the Super Bowl, and you just showed that run he made against Green Bay, and you can run a little bit against Kansas City. He might have a big day. He may keep Tampa in this game.
All right. We've arrived at the moment They can pick their friends, they can pick their nose, they can't pick games. Clinton Yates, it's time. Who you got?
Buccaneers. I'm not picking against Brady at home, 30-24.
Tim Kalishaw.
Whoa. I got to go with the Chiefs. Kansas City 30-17. Not quite as close as people think it's.
Sarah Spink.
Yes, pick. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, 30-24.
Israel Gutierrez.
I'm taking the Chiefs, 34-24. The Bucs at home. That matters?
It's not just you guys on the hook for your picks. Ladies and gentlemen, the picks.
Woo! Look at those picks.
Woo! Whoa, wait, I also have a pick. I have a pick. I have a prediction for halftime. Halftime of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. All right, enough of that. My prediction is Cardi B cameos during the weekend's halftime. Israel, Cardi B. Oh, buy or sell in 2 minutes.
That means she's in.
Major League Baseball news of the day, and news of the week, and news of the winter. Trevor Bauer to the Dodgers. Reports last night had him maybe going to the Mets. Now he's going to the Dodgers. He is officially going to the Dodgers. He posted out he's going to the Dodgers, although maybe he linked yesterday Mets merchandise. Clinton, we're hearing 3-year deal, but opt-outs after 2, opt-outs after 1, which is the Bauer way. Big money. What does it mean for the defending champs? What does it mean for Bauer?
I think it means what I've told you before, that in the NL West, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, and the Dodgers feel the need that they need to bolster their pitching staff. Let's not forget, though, David Price comes back to this staff as well, so they're not completely bare in the cupboard, but it means they have a question for what Urias does, which is whether he's going to be in the bullpen. I think that's where he will be, but otherwise, strong move for a team that already has a good staff.
And you're talking about the San Diego Padres specifically closer in the mirror than they've been.
Correct.
Tim Kalish, how about you?
Yeah, Bauer went to UCLA, so he gets to go home for a year or 2 or 3 or whatever it's going to turn out to be and pitch for the best team in baseball. But I agree with Clinton. I mostly buy A.J. Preller down in San Diego, putting the fear of God in the Dodgers, even after winning a World Series, making them think they got to go do this.
Sarah Spain.
Yeah, on Bauer's end, he goes to a perennial contender that's coming off a win that is now making clear that they want to win more, which is great for fans of the team who sometimes worry that after they get that title, they're going to drop off in terms of interest. Also, you get Bauer and you prevent other people from getting him. That's almost as big a part of it as them taking him in.
Israel Gutierrez?
I'm down to see the Dodgers front run and Bauer to be in a major market like LA. $40 million for next year. I think $45 for the year after that. But bringing him into this market, you mentioned the trolling, Tony, where he had Mets hat signed and Dodgers hat signed just earlier today before the announcement. He's a ton of fun. Can't wait to see him in this team.
He's a ton of a lot of things. Clinton Yates, that's $40 million this year, which would be, I guess, the highest single season salary in baseball history, and 45 if it were next year. Is Bauer deserving of that?
It's a large number for a guy who I think actually brings a reasonable amount of baggage to the situation rather than just skills on the mound. So listen, it's not my money. Of course, got $1 million, they got all sorts of cash, but I don't know that
You're right, it's not your money. That's your money. Yates, we'll move on. Buy or sell to Mr. LeBron James.
I have zero energy and zero excitement about an All-Star game this year. We were told that we were not having an All-Star game, so we had a nice little break. Pretty much kind of a slap in the face. And we're also still dealing with a pandemic. I'll be there physically, but not mentally.
A little behind the horn right now, just during the commercial break. Israel Gutierrez on the phone, working it, hearing from some sources in the NBA. So please, buy or sell LeBron, weighing in after it's all been decided, Israel.
Well, first of all, there's no deal in place just yet. They're still working on one. But I've been asking for the NBA side of it, and here it is. From their perspective, they do believe, based on the Players Association discussion with them, that the players do want to play. They believe that their partner in TNT obviously wants to put this on. As far as they're concerned, they want to play. As far as the health and safety protocols, they're asking you this. These guys with a 5 or 6 day break, are they going to be safer going on random vacations in the middle of their season, or are they going to be safer in this little bubble that we create for them? So as far as the NBA is concerned, if the players are telling their association they want to play, then they're going to put on the
Clinton, hearing LeBron there, though, come out and say, I'm not going to be there mentally. How do you hear it?
I hear that as a very strong statement. Let's not forget what Patrick Beverley said back before the bubble was a thing. He said, if the king wants to play, we play. And in this case, if the king doesn't want to play, I don't think that you have a reason to do it. Let's not forget what just happened in Atlanta. Why do we like the All-Star game? There's people everywhere. Folks are concerned. If you've got situations where it seems as if those involved don't want to be there or they don't know how to interact, bad idea already, yo, and don't have it get worse.
You know, here's my problem with it. I don't blame the NBA for trying to both make some money for themselves and for charity, which they are going to do through this process. But the whole aura around an All-Star weekend is the spectacle and all the people there and the crowds and the people in the front row watching the dunk contest and jumping up and down. And you can't have any of that. So just the game itself, which is mostly a dunk contest with very little defense, isn't really worth selling to the fans.
Now, Spain.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, of course, that dynamic between LeBron and the rest of the league. If other big-time players don't want to listen to him and do want to have a game, then it's not just up to LeBron. But I do think he has a point that they were told before this season started how it would look. And that included no All-Star game because you had a short offseason and a squeezed schedule. It's kind of difficult to now change your mind on that.
Israel, you want back in? A last word, please.
Yeah, it just seems like this is the way they're going. The NBA Players Association maybe might regroup, talk to their stars again and say, hey, do we really want this? Because as I told you, they don't have a deal in place just yet. It's supposed to be finalized next week.
That would be a lot of egg on the face, though, with the NBA. That doesn't happen often where, you kind of get the report beforehand. All right. I wouldn't never say egg on the face on first eliminated Tim Cowlishaw, Sarah Spain. But I will say enjoy this huge, potentially large game this weekend, this superb owl, this
colossal contest.
This big game, yes. Okay. Superb owl. That was my favorite thing back in the Super Bowl in Minnesota where the trade had superb owl for trades. Showdown coming up. Clinton Yates, Israel Gutierrez.
If he's going to miss it left.
Right leg nearly came up off the ground there. Went after that.
Oh, I think it got him on the padding. He's getting up quick. You can take away the pain, but you can't take away the swelling. He's just fine.
He's just fine, maybe. Where do you guys come down on broadcasters saying someone's okay, but not actually knowing they're okay, Clinton?
Well, as somebody that has seen you personally eviscerate quite a few panelists on this show without any regard for how we feel, I am pro this because we're all in pretty good in the end anyway. So I've seen it before.
It hit him in the padding, Tony. What padding? That man was wearing a little thin, cover over his shirt. For all he knows, he could have been hit by a meteor. You saw how hard he went down. He was not okay. He was not okay.
You're getting the point, Israel. But you're both getting mutes because you both have appeared on a certain program called Highly Questionable that does this all the time. You're showing videos of insects eating human beings, and you're like, oh, it's okay. You have no idea. We're moving on. Showdown 2. The Penn State tweets. A Penn Stater has appeared in every Super Bowl. Are they allowed to say that? Except for 5 since 1967. Except for 5? Israel, can you post that?
I can totally post that, but I'm going to do it like those little puppies do, right? Where it say open for a surprise, and then when you actually open the picture, you get the full picture. The details are important, people.
I consulted our resident Penn State grad, Emily Kaplan, on this. She said we definitely need to have a chat in Happy Valley, and the solution is very simple. Just put the two guys in the Super Bowl in the tweet, Chris Godwin and Steve Wisniewski. Highlight them instead of making it all about you. This is obvious to me.
Israel Gutierrez, look at that score, -3. I mean, it's a great day on the golf course. "30 seconds of FaceTime, Gutierrez."
A win is a win, Tony. And since I'm not going to any Super Bowl party, I'm going to dip my toe in gambling. I got 3 prop bets that I want absolute winners. First team to call a timeout, got to be the Bucs. I know Tom Brady's been there a lot, but the rest of that offense has not. They're going to scramble a little bit, call a timeout. Second one, Gatorade bat. It's got to be orange. It's a lock. The Chiefs went orange last year, and you know they're going to do the same this year. If you think the Bucs might go red, hasn't been a red Gatorade bath in more than 20 years. Get that red out of here. The last one, will they mention Patrick Mahomes has a fiance or that he's having a child first? clearly you go with the fiance first, because if they show a picture of her on the camera, you got to say he's going to marry her before you say she's going to have his baby, right? It's just respectful. There's a parlay for you. All three guaranteed wins.
Okay. Wow. All right. There you go. One more prop bet. There'll be a refereeing situation.